And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Wham! Kazam! First try. Why so serious?
He's a fast killer.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
I'm drinking pump. I've been drinking green tea all goddamn day.
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Good Day for a Movie podcast. We are brought to you by GD4GD, so head on over to GD4GD.com and buy some dope gear because $10 of every sale gets donated to their nonprofit partner, which is currently the Matthews House. They're a nonprofit that empowers youth and families by building trusting relationships. Their Strengthening Families program takes a holistic approach in helping at-risk families achieve stability. This helps disrupt the cycles of poverty and abuse. So, like I said, head on over to GD4GD.com and buy some awesome gear. I'm Jacob, and alongside me, as always, Tate.
What's up?
And our anonymous third co-host.
Yep.
So how are we feeling?
Feeling good.
I feel like we've been on a little bit of a hot streak watching movies and whatnot and picking some good ones.
Yeah,
Sure.
you know, and it's a cold day here today, snowed again, so good time for a movie.
Yep, today is the right day for a movie.
Absolutely. Okay. You know why it's a really good day for a movie?
Because it's your pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an okay day for a movie.
No, it's a great day.
Average day?
Great.
Subpar.
It's always a good day for a movie.
Yes. Okay. So let me set the stage for you guys.
What do you got for us?
The movie I'm picking is a movie starring John Wayne.
Oh.
And growing up, I should say my dad, loved John Wayne movies. Still does. Still watches them to this day, practically nonstop. If he's not watching golf, he's watching John Wayne movies. And this is a movie that a lot of people say is one of John Wayne's best movies. He's been in a lot of these kind of spaghetti westerns where it's kind of campy and just very 1950s, 60s, where it's just kind of just making a movie to have a movie out there.
Real quick, I don't even know if I've seen any John Wayne movies. What time frame like these movies come out?
So this movie's from 1962, and it's kind of on the tail end of his career. But
it's on the tail end?
He was really kind of a star from like the 40s through like the 70s. I think his last movie was in 72 with The Shootist. The movie that we are watching is The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Whoa.
A senator returns to a western town for the funeral of an old friend and tells the story of his origins. Starring John Wayne, James Stewart.
The Man Who... Oh, here it is.
The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Lee Marvin, Vera Miles.
Wow, that will be the second oldest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's
Director John Ford.
Yep. Legendary director. I mean...
Oh, man, it's a black and white?
It is.
It's a black and white film, baby.
And so that was actually on purpose. Around this time, most movies were being shot in color, but John Ford wanted to shoot this one in black and white.
Huh.
Yeah, I was kind of looking that up because I noticed that, and I was like...
Do you know about what point they moved to color?
When Wizard of Oz came out.
Was that the first movie?
I believe so. So that was in like 1939.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so this was shot in black and white on purpose, so that's something to keep in the back of your head. But I don't know, any questions before we get into this thing?
No, I'm excited. I've never seen a John Wayne movie, and I think this is going to be the oldest movie that I have seen. So there's a few movies that are really old that I know it's like you got to see, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and stuff like that. But this, I think, will be the oldest movie that I've seen. So I'm excited.
I should also say we're kind of downplaying the other name that I said, Jimmy Stewart. James Stewart is also in this movie, who's kind of one of the most legendary actors kind of all time.
His character's name is Ransom.
Yep.
Love that.
Yeah, so what do you think? Should we just get into this thing?
Yeah, let's do it. Streaming on Amazon Prime, looks like.
Yep.
Love it.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Valance.
This is the West, sir. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend.
I like that line.
Great line.
That was good.
I think that was a good summation of the movie. I probably to the surprise of very few. Loved this movie.
Yeah, I really, really like this film.
Just initial thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think of, I think the only other black and white film that I liked was Young Frankenstein. And that's it. Like, I can't think of another. I was very uncertain of what my thoughts were going to be going into a 1962 black and white film. I was like, man, I could totally lose interest 10 minutes into this movie, but I didn't.
Yeah, good. That makes me happy. I know you guys in the past, I think you guys have slowly came around in the last year or two of, at least Tate, I know you were very anti-old movie.
Yeah, they never intrigued me. I always would look at, kind of what we said earlier about some of the old classics that are rated some of the best movies ever. They just never really piqued my interest. So I was always like, I'll watch that at some point. But yeah, so I never really piqued my interest.
Yeah, and it's like, for me, I've always kind of tried to get you to watch kind of these old movies. I know that's kind of been a criticism of yours of like the original Star Wars. You're like, it just doesn't look as good. I think once you kind of look past maybe bad effects, the cameras not being these crazy 4K cameras we have today, maybe even some of these tropes that you see in kind of these older movies that have kind of aged out in a way, you really get to why Hollywood has always been propped up on this silver platter and made to be kind of this elite organization, because back in the day, they made amazing movies.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it a lot, this movie, and I think what as far as the process and how someone starts to like older movies and kind of get to know them and respect them and all that. So I think you just have to slowly be introduced, slightly older, because I think the one that I saw somewhat recently that was kind of an older film was a Clint Eastwood. What was the
Unforgiven?
Yeah. Unforgiven, yeah. So that was one where it was kind of older, but same style, Western.
I think that one came out in the 90s. I could be.
It was probably
no, I think that's right.
It was probably in the 80s or 90s. But it was just a little bit older and kind of gave an older vibe. And then there's just a few movies, and Princess Bride I was trying to think about was probably one of the older ones too. But you kind of start to get a little bit more respect for them that at least I didn't have earlier. And so watching a film like this, I can really respect all of the the true acting a lot more, and all of the sound. There's not nearly as much sound editing. It's all just the true sound that they capture. And so I have a lot of respect for these types of films, and you kind of see where these movies come from today, what this was back in the 60s. And I think that it was just really impressive.
Yeah, it's raw, because I would agree with you, Jacob. I mean, I still wouldn't prefer older movies, and that's probably because was born in the 90s and am pretty used to higher quality camera work and whatnot. But it would be, this one was black and white, no effects, but it was a really good story.
Yeah,
and the characters were awesome.
I think that's kind of what they had to rely on, because they didn't have any of these other kind of
They didn't have
crutches
sound effects and
they didn't have these crutches to lean on.
Crazy visuals that you could add and stuff
They had to tell a good story, because if they weren't telling a good story, what were you there for?
Yeah, there's John Wayne and James Cameron. It's either big boom boom Transformers where it makes your eyes blow up, but it's a horrible story, I guess, or this one where you're not blown away visually, but you can at least walk away saying, damn, that was a good story.
Yeah, because I think that the fact that this movie was black and white really gave it that, what you just said, the raw aspect of it. And I think you really had to rely on, and all these characters were a lot more, a lot of them were theatrical, and they kind of had to exaggerate their actions and the way they talked and everything. And so I think that this film came out a lot more in the actors and the storyline than it did in any of the visuals. And that was the thing that I really respect about this film and I like about it. And I think that it just kind of puts me down this, kind of like I said earlier, there's now a lot of older films that I think you can just kind of respect for what they are. And you kind of like what you're saying, we grew up in this age of a completely different movie style. And so to me, it's kind of you have you have to kind of like I now I have this category of kind of like older films, and then I have a different criteria that I kind of set those on, and like standards that I give those compared to like the movies that come out today or came out in even the last 20, 30 years. So as far as these kind of older movies go, I really, really like the way that they're able to tell the story and the way that they kind of had to use what they had to shoot the film and get it to look, I mean, like even that last scene when on the train, and like you can clearly tell that like they're not moving at all. What's behind them is moving, and like how they shoot car scenes today looks so much better, and like all these things. But you have to just respect that that looked great, and it got across their message of that they're on the train, and they did a really good job of it. So I don't know. I just have a lot more respect, I think, every time I see an older film done. I think a lot more about how it was made, and I think, yeah, it's a lot more raw, and I like it.
The point isn't to, like, they get their point across. It's not to, like, wow you about, like, oh, look at them moving in a train. Like, yeah, that was really cool when movies first came out, but it's kind of evolved into, like, during this time period, it was more of, okay, now, like, what are they telling in the story?
And I think there's something to say on themes, too, because a lot of movies can fall on the theme of either a director's style or whether an actor or actress is like the thing right now, or like rom-coms if they're the thing. People tend to just like those movies if they're kind of the thing. This one, and I think older movies in general, it's raw. It's like there's no theme to it. I mean, John Wayne, I don't know much about him, but just hearing from you, Jacob, was a big deal back then. But I don't think just having John Wayne would have carried this movie to be good if it didn't have a good story, and if it didn't make you want to watch it from beginning to end.
Well, and let's just get into the story, because there's some pieces of it that I want to dissect a little bit. Because at the beginning of the film, you seem to have known, Jacob, that it was going to do this little backtrack story. So that's what I had no idea about. But when you mentioned it earlier, I kind of then saw which way it was going. First off, biggest dick of the whole movie was the reporter who asked him about the story. And then after he tells this great story at the end, just trashes it and says, nope, just kidding. We don't want that story. Anywho, though, the story, I really liked the whole good guy, bad guy, good and evil aspect of this film, because I think they clearly have John Wayne as kind of this, well, I guess probably not even John Wayne. It was probably more Ransom as this like pure-hearted good guy. Liberty was the like kind of the opposite. He was like the anti-Ransom, who was just a chaotic, angry, bully type of character. And so it was a lot of the film, I think, was just about the good and evil, and especially back in the day, and especially in the West, how the gun ruled the law, that there was no law. And I really like that aspect of that's where John Wayne's character Tom came in, who was kind of like the in-between character, where he understood Ransom and where Ransom was coming from, but he also understood that this is the West and the gun rules. You won't get anywhere without a gun.
I like this idea of us kind of delving into like this just kind of basic storytelling of like just kind of good versus evil, and this kind of popped in my head when we were searching for this movie on Amazon Prime. One of the versions was, I'm assuming it's just kind of the plain version that's not restored, because one version's for free and one version you have to rent. And the description it says, like Pontius Pilate, director John Ford asks, what is truth in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance? But unlike Pilate, Ford waits for an answer. And so I think he's kind of telling two stories here. The first one is about this good versus evil thing, and the other one is, if the story is better than the truth and is done more good than the truth would have done, what's more important?
Yep. Yeah. And the truth in the end is the fact of who killed.
Yes. That
everyone else thinks, because that's one question I had is, do you guys think that even Hallie Hallie knew that? Do you think that she knew the actual truth?
Not
No, I don't
initially,
think
but
so.
I bet he eventually told her.
Yeah, okay. But I was just wondering if you think in that last train scene.
No, see, I don't think I don't think he ever told her because
She did you see her facial reaction when he was like, "You're the one that killed Liberty Valvoline."
Valance.
Valentine.
Babylon.
She was like, "Oh, this again."
Well, see, I think it was more of this again. Like
She knew.
See,
No, that's what made me think that
Yeah.
though, because her facial expression at the very end, I was like, oh, does she still like? Is that a face that says, oh, I miss Tom, because like she knows Tom killed him, or is it kind of like this again?
So you're telling me that he didn't tell his wife, but he told 3 random reporters at the deathbed of the person that killed Liberty.
Good point. Good point. All right, she knew. All right, good point. Good point.
Damn.
Goodness gracious.
So yeah, maybe that is kind of the lens that we're supposed to see it through. Of she even said her heart is back here in whatever town it was.
Not to get sidetracked. I was just wondering.
Yeah,
if you guys
no.
thought
But
that.
I mean, I think that kind of goes through the whole theme of it. And so, like with Ransom, like he wouldn't be in this position if he wasn't the one to shoot Liberty Valance. Because if right then and there he would have said, like, hey, I it wasn't me, it was Tom that shot him. It would have been, oh well, so you're just kind of a lawyer. Like nobody really cares. Like you're not the one that brought Law and Order. Tom is, and Tom doesn't want the seat, so we're going to give this to him. And who knows how long it took for that state to get statehood if Ransom.
I'm having trouble with these names.
If Ransom didn't become the senator and the representative of the territory. So yeah, what else you have to add on that?
Yeah, because earlier I didn't even think about that as far as the film being about also the truth and what's more important. So I think that's a really cool question to bring up because I didn't even think about the fact that that's probably what this film is about in the end. Because Ransom knows in that last scene that he didn't kill, or the last scene of the flashback, that he didn't kill him. And he kind of realizes it with Tom, and then Tom tells him and then walks off and says, because Tom knows that that's not his place. And Tom knows that he's better off, and everybody's better off if they think that Ransom killed him and takes that house seat and goes basically on that path where Ransom needs to go. It helps him go down that. And the fact of knowing who killed Valance. We're going to have a montage of
It's
all of
on the screen.
I'm just going to call him, I don't know. I'm going to call him
I guess I
something
did
different every time.
Valvoline, so I can't speak, but
Lee Marvin. That's the actor who played him.
Yeah, but I didn't even think about that until you said it, that the whole idea of what's more important, the actual, and when even the reporter says it at the end, because he tosses out his story because he's like, well, we need to know if this is the truth before we can ever post it. And then it kind of, so there's a lot of hints that just jabs at the truth in this film that I didn't even think about until you just said that.
And I don't think the reporter was actually being a dick about it. I think it was more of, well, this would probably kind of kill your career if the world found out, because you can they kind of painted that for you when they're on the train at the end. The guy says anything for the guy who shot Liberty Valance. So that legend still follows him. And so if the paper were to,
so you think that he didn't publish the paper because you think it would have killed his career?
I think it's twofold. It would be, well, nobody wants to know this, for one.
And then also
Two,
it sounds like an old wives' tale.
Yeah, two, we like what you're doing in Washington.
Oh.
So
I guess I thought that they were going to throw it out because they were like, oh, we can't confirm this story. We don't really know. You just sound like you're just shooting at your ass right now with this story.
Yeah, no, I think they fully believed him.
Oh, okay.
But the point was they didn't want to publish a story that would take down years and years of myth and legend that has been surrounded this town.
I like that ending more because when he just tossed out that paper because he didn't believe him is what I thought. I was like, that was so dumb for them to tell his entire story, and then at the end he just tosses it. I was like, whoa.
And I think it's a story of tragedy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Not like a light tragedy. Not like it was Greek dude that banged his mom. Oedipus. It's not Oedipus tragedy. That's tragic. This is like a light tragedy because young woman working in her family's restaurant, takes care of a kind of hotshot lawyer in a sense. And this dude who's been pretty much courting this girl for their whole lives in this small town is like, oh, damn, there's this hotshot, and he has this whole world outside of this place that he can show her. And then their lives kind of unfold in a way where they get closer. He's teaching her these things that she wouldn't have known unless an outsider had come into her world. And he sees her growing this affection towards this guy and not him. And so he makes a decision to defend this man, to give this woman that he loves the opportunity for this world that she wants outside of this small town. Ends up making him a legend, the hotshot a legend, him a regular. He dies tragically without the person he thought he was going to spend the rest of his life with. And then the tragedy unfolds deeper in the end of their story, where they both, Ransom and Hallie, know that the hotshot isn't really who they thought the hotshot was. And so she regresses back to this old love of who the hotshot actually was, which was Tom. Also, why was his name pronounced like that?
Donovan? That's also how it's
Donovan.
spelled.
Okay,
Doniphon.
Yeah,
We'll get into that because that's ridiculous.
It should just be Donovan. But
It should just be Donovan.
So I think you should have ended it like 20
Yes.
seconds before. I think
Correct.
what the tragedy
I was
is.
up with you. I was following you. I was behind your back the entire way up until you start talking about the love.
I think Hallie still loves Ransom.
Correct.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
But there was a love for
Yes,
Tom.
absolutely.
Yes.
And it's like kind of what she has now is the love of what could have been. And I think that's kind of what the tragedy lies for Tom Donovan, his character. If you're viewing this movie through the John Wayne's character's eyes, it is a tragedy because he's supposed to be this one that's this hotshot
and he is.
He's the talk of the town.
Yep.
And then this happens where he's the one who pulls the heroic moment, but he purposefully doesn't take credit for it.
Yeah, and I love that you hit on this because there was a note that I made in the film, and I wrote this down when he was wasted and going back to his house and burned his house down and all these things because I realized I was like, oh, this is I didn't even think about it at that moment, but this is a tragedy for John Wayne's character. And I think I wrote down in my notes, I said, in the end, he didn't get the girl. He didn't he didn't get the recognition for what he did. And he really, I think it's because he kind of really feels like he wasn't the better man. And he almost wishes that he was more like Ransom's character because he was this hotshot in his town and everyone loved him. But he grew up in this town where the gun was the law. And I think he was kind of almost jealous that Ransom was this almost more pure-hearted and good character that was also still tough. And it still had a lot of the values that he had, but was just a more educated and was, just a better man. Wouldn't carry a gun, didn't want to kill anybody and all these things. Even though he knew that he wouldn't survive in the West, he respected it a lot more. And I think he knew that Ransom was going to get the girl, I think. And then that's kind of when he started to get drunk and he was like, you know what? He's who I wish I could be almost.
Yeah. And I think
even though he was the hot shot,
I think everything changed for Tom when Ransom punched him because when he punched him,
it kind of flipped.
He finally gained respect for Ransom. And it was like, okay, well, this guy isn't this kind of just paper body, house of cards type of person. Like he actually does have a backbone, and it's tragic because he's like, well, unfortunately now I have respect for him, and now I can kind of respect him getting the girl.
Yep. And it's kind of like, I think John Wayne's character in Valentine, whatever, Liberty, kind of had this respect for the law, like the land, and respect for the gun and all these things. But they both, and Ransom's character basically had this higher level of respect for just all people, and then respected the law above all people. And I think that no one in this small town really grasped that, but except for John Wayne's character, knew that he was right almost, but just wasn't but he knew who he was, and he knew that he wasn't Ransom, but he wanted to be, I think.
Yeah, so I still think it's like a long tragedy because it's a tragedy of a man forgotten.
Yes,
and so,
exactly. I was actually about to continue on, and I'm going to jump off of this.
Because the moment
You're getting me amped.
John Wayne tells him it was me who killed Liberty Valance, from that point on, Ransom and eventually Hallie know who the real hotshot is, and so they kind of have to live with this burden of living the hotshot life, knowing who the forgotten man is.
It's almost like John Wayne's character fell on his sword with nobody around, except for Ransom's character.
And so I think the most tragic part of the entire movie takes place at the beginning, which is actually the end, where he says, I'm in town for a funeral, and all the reporters are kind of scrambling, and they're like, who died? They're like, nobody died.
Wow,
and
I didn't even think about that.
That's where the tragedy lies, where he has become a nobody. And allow me to maybe go off the deep end here, but I think this is analogous to kind of the Western cowboy lifestyle as a whole. I think the character knew the time of the gun being the law is near its end. As that saw its twilight, so did he, because the way he lived his life was no more.
Yep. It's like that he knew his times were changing, and he was like he was himself, and he's not going to change with the times. He was just going to, but he accepted it still. Ransom's character was like the future.
I think the greatest tragedy was that he didn't get to sit and read a book in the new extension of his house, because it looked nice. Had a nice breeze. Bummer he burned it, but
man, when
shit happens when you're drunk.
I didn't even think about this whole story of the forgotten man. Like,
yeah, good versus bad. Boo. That's boring.
Wow,
shit.
That's surface level shit. God, I gotta step up my game.
I really didn't think about it until you guys started saying it, and it clicked in my head. I was like, oh yeah, the description from Amazon Prime.
Yeah. I made the note of he was jealous of him, but then I left it at that. I was just like, oh, he knew that he wasn't the same, and he almost respected him for who he was, but I didn't even go a step further than that. So I'm glad you said that.
Well, imagine if he didn't, and Ransom died.
And then Imagine if John Wayne's character
didn't kill Liberty Valance. Like, Law of the Land probably still would have been guns for a long time. Hallie would have been his girl.
Liberty
Valance may have been.
I don't think Hallie would have ended up with him, because this is all conjecture. I think she would have blamed him for not being there.
Well,
and with him being there, like, this was a lose-lose situation for him.
I think that he kind of knew what the right decision was, and knew that it wouldn't be the best for him. And he wasn't greedy or like needed the fame himself, and he wasn't selfish in needing to. He just knew what had to be done, and he did it, and he knew that everybody needed to look up to Ransom, and so.
Yeah, it's just more fun to think about. Like, what if?
Yeah.
What if Pompey was like, John Wayne,
Pompey,
why aren't you killing this guy? And then he kills him. Then Pompey's really the forgotten man and the badass. And
then that would have been dope if he was.
Yeah, Pompey's just like, I got
this.
He
wanted to shoot that shotgun so bad.
That wasn't a shotgun. That was a rifle.
It was a rifle. But he
wanted to shoot that
rifle.
gun guy over here, big gun guy.
John Wayne almost had to get it out of his hands because Pompey was ready to shoot him before John Wayne shot him. Like, Pompey was ready to go, and John Wayne was like, "No, we need to slow down, man."
One of my favorite scenes, which doesn't really have the biggest impact on the story as a whole, but was when Ransom's character was teaching school and had Pompey kind of go through the
Constitution,
the Declaration. You just made the same mistake he did.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's because what he says. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, they're kind of going over the founding of our country. Man, it would be nice to have him as a teacher nowadays to teach a bunch of people that have forgotten that. But he has them recite the first few lines of the Declaration, and he kind of forgets the line about all men are created equal. And Ransom's like, a lot of people forget that part. So that was one of my favorite scenes. But
Yeah, well, that gets back to his whole. I think he's kind of like the future. Like he started a school and he started an education in this town. That was a mix of all these kids and adults, and but he just knew that And what did it say? Education in the class, or he's like, education in the classroom is the like basis of law and order. Yeah, I think was on the chalkboard.
Education is the groundwork for law and order.
Yeah,
something like that.
And so that's just like that written on that chalkboard. That is who Ransom was. And I think that is just what made him, that's just what made his character so much more respectable for everyone in the town. Because, all men were created equal and the law governs the man.
I loved this Swedish family. They were awesome.
All of the side characters were pretty great.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it as far as when everyone being very theatrical and very expressive in like the way that they were acting. It was mostly Peacock. What's his name? Peabody, and the marshal and all these, like, they're hilarious. And
you've yet to get a character's name right.
That's going to be a theme for this entire podcast, probably. But the marshal made me laugh so bad.
Yeah, shouts to all you Disney files out there that already knew that he was the voice of Friar Tuck and Robin Hood, one of my favorite Disney movies.
Yeah, you said that earlier. I had no idea. But he was hilarious. I mean, he was the marshal, and like the bad guy even said, "What's up, marshal? Like, what are you gonna do?" And even when like he had to book somebody, he was like, "Oh yeah, guys, grab this guy and throw him outside. Oh, and tell him the marshal from Spinbone." Fuck, I can't get any names right.
Yep.
Shinbone
threw you out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the marshal's that character is a good kind of metaphor for law and order in the land of the gun being the law.
Yeah,
where it has no backbone. There's
the most incompetent person is the marshal.
Yeah, yeah. Every town needed their Tom.
To his defense, he was really good at getting a lot of stuff on credit.
Yes, lots of X's up on that chalkboard.
Yeah, man, he could eat a good steak.
That's why I want to be with that Swedish family. Those steaks were gigantic.
That's one note that I made in the beginning is I was like, it made me think about Westworld. I would love to be like the idea of Westworld and just go experience the West for a day and just go find a random small town, basically just do whatever you want. Go to a tavern, go smash a glass on the wall, go take some shots and go fire your gun outside and then whatever you want to do. Like, I don't know. It would be a crazy time.
Things got rowdy on a Saturday night in Shinbone.
Big time.
I personally would have gone to the cantina, but the saloon looked pretty good too.
Yeah, they were having a good time at the end at the cantina.
Yeah, they were pretty happy that old Valentine was gone.
That Liberty was done.
Oh, yeah. I also want to touch on so this is your guys' first John Wayne movie, right?
Correct.
Absolutely.
There is nobody that can deliver a Western line like he can. He just carries himself so awesome. He just has so much
looks
swagger.
Fit for these types of roles. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, this is the only movie I've seen him in. But I do know him as like an old Western kind of actor, and at least that's kind of that's what I know about him. But he fits that to a T. Like, he completely takes on that character, and I believe it.
Just everything from his walk to how he talks to his kind of looks that he gives, and it's just they just don't make him like that anymore.
He was great, and so this is actually gets into. Oh, did you want to say something?
I was just gonna say it's a shame that he stole that Pilgrim line from Jeremiah Johnson.
Stupid comment.
Dumb.
So I was reading up that Paramount was the one that forced Ford, the director, to have John Wayne as the Tom character. And Ford, the director, didn't want to do that, but did he
want him as the Ransom character?
They didn't say what he wanted him as, but I assume so. But they did say that there was basically a lot of tension on the set in general because of this. And it sounds like Ford didn't have a lot, like he was kind of, he didn't have a lot of freedom to make, like in some decisions in this film anyways. Sounds like Paramount had kind of him on a leash, but they forced him to have John Wayne as this side character. And people on set were saying that they thought that Ford had it out for John Wayne because of that. And John Wayne never really had any idea why. He was just kind of like, but he knew what was happening. And so then they said it kind of had this ripple effect where John Wayne treated Strobe, which was Pompey. He kind of treated him badly on set. And there was one time where they actually almost got in a fight. And people on the set were saying that there's just kind of this, there was this whole dynamic between the director, John Wayne, and Pompey. And Ford also, they said, was giving Stuart, or was it Stuart? The main character, Ransom?
Oh, yeah, Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, so they said that he was kind of getting the preferential treatment. So it was just interesting because one of the people, I think it was Strobe, said afterwards, he was like, this was actually a horrible film to make. He's like, I did not have a good time making this film. I didn't have fun. People were mad all the time. And so reading that, I thought that was very interesting just to hear kind of the backstory about making a film. Shit can happen and egos can get in the way. But I thought that was very interesting because I thought John Wayne was perfect for the Tom role.
Yeah. I have a feeling, I have heard that John Wayne wasn't the easiest person to work with in the world, especially kind of once he became the star that John Wayne is. His first credited role was in 1930.
Jeez.
And he's pretty much only, well, I shouldn't say that. The vast majority of his work has been in Westerns, playing a cowboy, and playing very similar characters to the character that he played in this one. And so for him to not be the hero, I'm sure was probably not the easiest pill for him to swallow.
Yeah.
Especially with a relatively up and newcomer and Jimmy Stewart, who is going to be a star and was a star at the time, I'm sure.
Which this is a fun fact that it said that they were 53 and 54 at the time of filming. And they were like, their characters were much younger than that.
Yeah, very, very much younger.
Much, yeah. Yeah, and it's also kind of funny because it's kind of nearsighted. I think from our conversation thus far, we've pinned John Wayne's character as the hero.
Yeah, it's kind of a
there's
two
two
sides to
heroes,
that coin.
but there's because I mean, if John Wayne didn't do, or if
almost like
Tom didn't do what he did, then Ransom wouldn't have. Lived.
I almost see it as they're a combination of two heroes, and or at least Ransom's character is kind of the outcome of what he became was kind of the hero of two different characters. Kind of he got the good side, or he got the help from John Wayne, but he also had all these other virtues too. But he would have never got there without John Wayne.
You're making it too complicated. They're heroes.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, but I'm just saying that the character Ransom was like the hero, and John Wayne was the forgotten one.
Was the hero.
But in the viewer's eyes, they're both heroes. But everyone in like the story,
yeah, they're both heroes.
There was
but
one
John
hero
Wayne was the
story.
hero.
I don't understand what's happening.
I'm just trying to emphasize. It's fun.
All right, let's move into some scores here. So from the aggregators, IMDb 8.1 out of 10, Rotten Tomatoes 94%, Metacritic 94%.
Wow, those are some high scores.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably falls in 85 for me. I really liked it. The story was great. John Wayne was impressive, and I understand why people like his movies. I still think it doesn't fall into like the top 15 territory just because of its age, and that's not anything against it. It's just it's coming from someone who's been watching movies 40 years later and going back in time. So I have nothing really bad to say about the movie. Like, it's very good, and it's a very enjoyable story. It's just old, and it's, yeah.
And you're ageist.
I'm ageist.
Tate.
Can I change my score?
Yes.
I change it to an 84 out of 100.
Okay. That 1 point, folks, really makes a difference. It's important
because I run by a star system. Strong 4, weak 4, weak 4.5, strong 4.5, and it's a strong 4 for me. So I can't go with an 85 out of 100. So it's an 84 because it's a very, very, very strong 4. But it doesn't hit 4.5 territory for me. So it's an 84.
All right, Pilgrim. I'm going to go with an 85. I like this film a lot. I have a newfound respect for old films. So, Jacob, if you want to pick more old films in the near future, go right ahead. Yeah, I really liked it. It was good.
Yeah, you know I will be, because these seem to be a great success. I, probably unsurprisingly, am going to give this movie a little bit higher of a score for you guys. I'm going to give this one a 96. I think it deserves that score. I think the story that it told, as we just delved into, was very complex. I think the acting was superb. And that is going to be an average score of 88.3. So that's up there. That's pretty darn high.
It was a good movie.
Movies that we've watched so far.
I honestly, it exceeded my expectations too.
Yeah.
When we were coming into it and you were saying black and white old film, I was like, oh, okay. And I just have this idea in my head of these old films that are in black and white are good, but they'll never be great. They'll never be like those 90s, 95s. But this one was up there. This was a really, really good film.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. It deserves it.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for today. If you have thoughts or questions, you can shoot us an email at gd4ampodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at gd4gd.movies. We're also on Twitter at gd4gd_movies. We would love for you to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen on, especially Apple Podcasts. Just make sure they're all 5 stars.
We'll come find you if you don't, Pilgrim.
Take her easy there, Pilgrim.
When you come to the end of the line with a buddy who is more than a brother and a little less than a wife, getting blind drunk together is really the only way to say farewell.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.